Zombies. They're iconic. They're everywhere. In books, TV shows, movies, and that's right, you guessed it, video games. Luckily, I've never run into one of these suckers in real life, but who knows when that might change. So I've prepared a list of the top 10 zombie video games in the hopes of increasing my survival. I'm sure you're all familiar with the top 10 format by now, but I have some additional rules. They are one game per series, and strict zombie theming, so no Half-Life, Minecraft, Splatterhouse, games of that nature. Now that I've got that out of the way, let's start with number 10. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Number 10. Starting off at number 10, we have Stubbs the Zombie and Rebel Without a Pulse. It's a pretty fascinating game without anything else really like it.
Sodom? Wait, what?
I would try to compare it to another game, but as far as I can tell, no other game has really even attempted what this game has. Which is probably because the whole gameplay of it all is pretty firmly rooted in the fact that you're a zombie. That's right, we gotta think about it from the other guy's perspective for this game. Narratively speaking, Stubbs just kinda does whatever he feels like, although his main goal seems to be getting with a hot blonde. Something I think we can all relate to.
Sure you don't need anything? A cold drink?
No.
Cigarette?
No.
Foot massage?
Oh, what?
No, nothing, never mind.
Stubbs has a pretty simple approach to whatever hurdles he comes across, which oddly makes him seem more human compared to, well, the humans. From a gameplay perspective, all you really have to do is get from point A to point B, but of course the smelly humans will do everything in their power to stop you from doing that. That's why you have to infect them with your zombie virus. You see, to put it simply, zombies alone, weak, but zombies together, strong. That's why I say the gameplay is so unique. What it really comes down to is a numbers game, and while you see this all the time in strategy games, I don't think I've ever seen it be done in this format before. It's a pretty good incentive to try and infect as many people as you can because it's the best way to win. What I'm trying to say is, this game really makes you feel like a zombie, at least when it's not too busy doing whatever the hell it wants.
Huh?
The AI is relatively dynamic, it's got a cool retro-futuristic setting, and its unique gameplay makes it more than worthy of its spot at number 10 on my list. Number 9. Dead Rising. Dead Rising is pretty cool. You've got your zombies, your mall setting, your escort missions. What could be possibly better than escort missions? Oh, I know. Timed escort missions. I'm being somewhat facetious here because Dead Rising is basically the number one shining example of how you'd want to achieve this. It's hard to find games that so effortlessly blend great storytelling with its own sense of humor, while maintaining a good sense of gameplay.
I don't allow vandalism in my store!
It walks a fine line between challenging and outright annoying, but that's perfect for a game of this caliber. There's a huge variety of fun weapons to cut zombies up with. Plus, the whole Pokemon Snap angle adds a whole new layer of depth to the gameplay. It's a lot more fun than you'd think. If there is one thing I would complain about though, it would be that why the fuck is there an option to basically delete your save file right on the game over screen? If you're not paying attention and you're in an area that's pretty difficult, chances are you'll just be spamming the button to continue. It's more than likely you'll accidentally press the button that literally deletes your save file. No going back,
What?
no restoring your file, you lose. Good day, sir.
Stop.
Seriously though, why even put it there in the first place? Number 8. Plants vs. Zombies. Alright. This list has scary games on it, I promise. It just so happens that Plants vs. Zombies is one of the best tower defense games ever made. I played this game all the time when I was a kid, but I'm not letting nostalgia blind me. It's legitimately very good. Laura Shigehara's soundtrack for the game is an all-time banger, if not one of the most iconic game OSTs ever conceived. But Before I was able to afford the game, I just played the demo version over and over, which is honestly all you need, as the gameplay loop is that satisfying, even if it is pretty simple. The gist is you've got to stop zombies from eating your brains. Shocker. And the only way to do that is with the help of your trusty plants. It's pretty creative, and there's a whole plethora of plans and strategies for you to choose from. Each stage adds an interesting new twist that you've got to adapt to, but it never really gets too hard, at least on your first way through it. If that's not enough for you, there's always bonus mini-games and the Zen Garden to keep you satisfied, although what's included kind of depends on what version of the game you're playing. Number 7. Siren. Finally, a scary game, am I right, gamers? But this isn't your Five Nights at Fazbear's jump scare type of scary. No shade. It's pure, raw, authentic atmosphere horror. Don't get me wrong, there are some moments where shit will pop up in your face, but it's never quite on that level. It's pretty fantastic for a PS2 game. Although, granted, this stuff was definitely possible during the previous gen. It's even directed by the same guy. You'll never be able to achieve this without the game's top-notch use of sound design, visual effects, and pacing. The facial animations use this really interesting style where they display real human faces and superimpose them onto the models, which gives it a pretty unique style. It's in that legendary tier that even modern games today struggle to achieve. And of course, the zombies. Although they're referred to as Shibito in the universe, which literally means corpse people. The gameplay is honestly the most divisive element to it, and sure, escorting can be pretty frustrating, but other than that, it's a lot of fun sneaking around the zombies making sure you aren't spotted. It's got a great mystery element to it that will have you scratching your head and wondering why the fuck do they sound British.
Let's just go to the church together, and then think about what to do. The dog's already dead anyway.
Okay, it's really not a big deal or anything. Like, obviously, I can still set it aside and enjoy the story, but isn't the whole point of a localization is to frame it in a way that makes it seem natural to you? Nothing against Brits, but seeing just entirely Japanese people speaking that flawless British accent really almost does, like, take me out of it. I would have almost even preferred that they kept the original dialogue and put subtitles over it. Alas, the dub is perfectly serviceable. I just thought I'd mention it as it is relevant to the experience. It's a great classic with unmatched vibes, highly recommended to any fans of atmospheric horror. Number 6. Death Road to Canada. Death Road to Canada is what happens when River City Ransom meets the Oregon Trail. And if everyone was zombies. It has you traveling across the states as you start in Florida and make your way up to the last bastion of humanity, Canada. Yeah, that's the only time you'll ever hear me say that. You can even put all your family and friends in via the character creator, giving them each their unique personality which grants respective benefits, and they can all appear randomly in the game. You can even have friends play as said characters for the couch co-op mode. The gameplay loop is pretty addictive with its roguelike features as you unlock more and more content each playthrough. No two playthroughs are ever the same, and in case you start to get bored, there are plenty of different modes to level up the difficulty. It's got a great sense of humor that will appeal to mostly everyone with tons of references. It's still receiving updates to this day despite being released more than 8 years ago now. It's a great game that I've gotten a ton of mileage out of, and holy shit. Really, game devs? You're gonna jump scare me for quitting the game? I won't lie, that scared the shit out of me the first time I played this. Overall, it's cute, funny, has good action, and definitely deserves a spot at number 6. Number 5. The Walking Dead Season 1. It's pretty rare for just some random IP to get a video game adaptation of this caliber. I use the term adaptation kind of loosely here because they share some of the same characters, but as far as I can tell, they never actually explicitly state that it's the same universe as the comic or TV show. But that's perfectly fine because The Walking Dead game is an entirely self-contained story that you can enjoy by itself. Developed by the now defunct Telltale Games and Skybound Games, The Walking Dead video game is notable for not only being a great zombie game in general, but breathing the air of life back into the adventure genre, which had largely been stagnating up to the release of this game. And buddy, let me tell you, there are a few games that are so able to perfectly capture the drama and hard decisions that a zombie apocalypse is able to bring with it. Part of that is due to the great characters. Even the bad ones are written in a way that is profoundly human. Lee is a great protagonist, and it'd be hard to hate him even when you're choosing all the dialogue options that make you a jerk. Every step of the way you've got Clem with you, adding a whole nother layer of depth to all your choices. With that said, I sincerely do not want to spoil any of the story notes because this is probably Telltale's magnum opus. You really should play it if you haven't given it a chance by now. Number 4. Dead Space. EA published Dead Space in 2008 to the 7th generation of consoles. I know that Dead Space necromorphs aren't the most picturesque representation of zombies people have in mind, but to me, becoming a zombie already innately has that body horror aspect to it. Dead Space just turns that up to 11 and I see no reason to hold that against it. Usually, with zombies, you want to shoot them in the head, but that won't stop necromorphs. In this game, the best way to defeat zombies is by dismembering them with improvised sci-fi tools, almost becoming like a puzzle game as you try to line up as many ligaments as possible. The Yoshiji Ishimura is iconic for being one of the best horror settings in video games, period. It does a great job with environmental storytelling, and the superb sound design lends to the uneasy atmosphere that will constantly keep you on your toes. This is one of the best survival horror shooters I've ever played. I'm a big sucker for psychological horror, which Dead Space has no shortage of, as if the mere idea of these hellish flesh monsters crawling their way towards you wasn't enough. The story has great pacing that will guide you through the downward spiral of insanity that the crew face as Isaac Clarke has a little spiral of his own. Number 3. Project Zomboid. Project Zomboid is an indie game being developed by the Indie Store. It scratches an itch for me that no other game can seem to match. It's like if My Sims met DayZ. One of the reasons I love it is because facing Zeds is only half the issue. Survival is the main goal. What I mean is, it's a completely immersive sin. If your character gets hungry, you gotta eat. If you get sad, you gotta cheer yourself up. And the difficulty will only get worse with every passing day as the world around you continues to deteriorate and you lose access to luxuries such as electricity or running water. It has to be one of my most played games, and I can only guarantee I'll play more of it. The roadmap is absolutely massive, and you can always finally tailor the difficulty to your taste if you're having trouble, or if you're a complete masochist. You can even play it with friends. Its first release was in April 2011. With over 10 years of development, you can only be sure the Indie Store will have more in store for us. I'm sorry, I wrote that in on accident and I refuse to take it out, but if you don't want to wait for updates, there's more than enough content to compensate on the workshop. Number 2. Resident Evil. I know it would practically be considered sacrilege to not include Resident Evil somewhere on this list, but honestly, I have limited experience with the series. I'll get around to properly experiencing it someday, but the way I'm most familiar with the series is through the original Resident Evil, mostly by proxy of Doraemon, Resident Evil, also known as Nobuhaza, this weird old RPG Maker game where the Resident Evil characters are swapped with the characters from the hit show Doraemon. It's not really too important if you haven't seen the show, as it retains most of Resident Evil's core identity. A dreadful atmosphere so palpable with fright you can nearly taste it. Oh yeah, and zombies, of course. Beneath that veneer of goofy charm, it has some of the best writing to ever grace the video game scene. Basically, it's a historic masterpiece that set the stage for gaming survival horror, proving that there is a massive market for these kinds of horror games. You can complain about tank controls all day long, but the truth is we wouldn't have half the zombie games we have today without the inception of the original Resident Evil, setting a golden standard while pioneering an entirely new genre at the same time. Make sure to say thank you, Resident Evil, before you go to bed tonight. Number 1.
Report unusual behavior. Barricade your homes. Avoid all contact with infected individuals. Wait for official instructions. Wait my ass.
Kill all sons of bitches. That's my official instructions.
Left 4 Dead 2. What can I say about this game that hasn't already been said? When you think zombies, this is always one of the first games that come to your mind. With overwhelming hordes of uniquely powerful zombies that lend themselves into making the game not just one of the best co-op experiences gaming has to offer, but setting a golden standard for these 4-player co-op games for decades to come. I know for a fact I'm not the only one that still loads up this game about every other month to enjoy the brilliance of the AI director, perfect voice acting. The Left 4 Dead cast just exudes so much charm, one of the best in gaming. And if you ever get bored with the dirt cheap base game, there's always a ton of mods to install from the workshop. The level design is top-notch. Most of the story is told through environmental storytelling, which is a great way to build a world without slowing down the pace. Since it's fairly linear and straightforward, it'll always make sure to keep the gameplay flowing and you'll hardly ever get lost, but still offers you enough chances to explore so you don't feel boxed in. The gunplay is also great, although there is definitely a meta with the automatic weapons. Even just the technology Valve employed to bring us this game is amazing. It makes me question whether or not we'll ever see a game like this again, like lightning in a bottle. That's why it's number one. Agree? Disagree? Let me know about the zombie games I missed in the comments below. Thanks for watching.